I'm James Kemp, president of the Jack Kemp Foundation, and it's a pleasure to be here in Buffalo for the first oral history symposium of the Kemp Oral History Project. The Jack Kemp Foundation was founded in September of 2009, and there isn't a better place to come than where Dad's professional football career took off, and we really appreciate the Buffalo Bills hosting us, and it's a perfect lead into one of the major projects that we are embarking upon, the Kemp Leadership Academy, which will be a resource for current and former professional athletes who are interested in public policy and public service, seeking to follow in the footsteps of Jack Kemp, Bill Bradley, Steve Largent, J.C. Watts, and others who took their exploits on the fields of friendly strife to the Capitol, where today, as we always have, we need politicians who are passionate about serving their party best by serving their country first. We believe that that's one of the things that Jack Kemp, my father, did so well, and we look forward to his inspiration continuing into future leaders, both from on the fields of friendly strife and from other walks of life. It's a privilege to be here with the Buffalo Bills. We appreciate Mr. Wilson and the whole Bills team who helped put this together, and all of the participants from Dad's Buffalo Bills career and his political career here in Buffalo throughout the years. Thank you.
I'm Morton Kondracki. We're here at the Ralph Wilson Stadium in Buffalo to do a day of oral history interviews on the career of Jack Kemp, the Bills' star quarterback for 8 years and the Buffalo area congressman for 18 years. This event is sponsored by the Bills organization and the Jack Kemp Foundation as part of the Jack Kemp Legacy Project. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate it. Would you please introduce yourselves briefly, say who you are and what your role with the team was and what years you were there, starting with Ed Abramoski.
I'm Ed Abramoski. I was the trainer from 1960 to 1997, so I've known Jack quite well.
Larry.
I'm Larry Felser. I covered the Bills from their start, from 1960 up to the present for Buffalo newspapers.
Al.
I'm Al B. Miller. I came here in 1961, played till 69. I was the center and also played guard and tackle for the Bills.
Charley Ferguson. I was a wide receiver from 1963 to 1969.
Paul Maguire. I was Jack Kemp's favorite punter and the only guy that on the Buffalo Bills football team that he really liked.
I'm Ernie Warlick. I was the tight end for the Bills beginning in 1962 to 1965 and was Jack's favorite tight end.
I'm Booker Edgerson, cornerback, 1962 through 1969, and just a great fan of Jack Kemp.
Great.
Ed Rutkowski. I played from 63 to 68. I was a wide receiver, a quarterback, and it was my fumble against Oakland that got us the #1 draft choice in 1969, O.J. Simpson. And if Ralph Wilson's watching this, Ralph, you owe me a finder's fee.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask all of you this question, and we'll just go in reverse order, starting with Ed Rutkowski. When you think about Jack Kemp, what favorite thoughts come to mind, and does one particular experience stand out to you on or off the field? This gives you an opportunity to just tell your favorite story. Ed?
I've got a lot of favorite stories about Jack Kemp. In fact, the year that I played quarterback, Jack had injured his knee, tore it up in a preseason practice, and I ended up the last part of the season as starting quarterback. And Jack would be on the sidelines or up in the press box, and when I came off the field, he would tell me what I was doing wrong and maybe some potential plays I should call. And the first time that I ever went in as quarterback, I think it was against the Houston Oilers, and Jack was on the sideline sitting on the bench with his leg propped up in a cast. and I think I threw like 5 passes, and 3 were incomplete, and 2 were intercepted. And as I came off the field, to almost like a standing ovation. And I walked over the bench to sit next to Jack, and he was shaking his head, and he said, "Eddie, if only I was Polish and Catholic and went to Notre Dame." He said, "It's unbelievable. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant from California. Just couldn't believe it."
Booker.
Well, one of my favorite conversations with Jack is when he first came here. He came here injured at his finger, and there was so much fuss what to do about getting Jack Kemp off the waiver wires, and that Buffalo had one of the greatest quarterbacks in the American Football League at that particular time, and that how Lou Sabin manipulated the system and got Jack in here. And I remember talking to Jack, and not knowing Jack at any point. To me, at that time, he started talking, with his proper talk and everything, and that he went to, came from California, went to Occidental, and all those things, And I'm saying, what is this guy coming from? Because he was so prop and pompous that I said, how could he quarterback us to any kind of wins? And why did Lou Sabin pick this guy up off of the waiver wire? And later on, as the season went on, the proof was in the pudding that Jack did prove to be the quarterback that we needed to put us on the map here in Buffalo.
Great. Okay, Ernie?
One thing that I remember distinctly is Jack used to love to throw the hook pattern to the tight end, where that means, for those that don't know, you go down, you run your pattern about 8 to 10 yards, and then just make a turn and face the quarterback. Well, my fingers, it took a long time for my fingers to get any feeling back, and also my chest, because he threw a ball that was so hard that he must have been about 20 or 30 miles an hour. And he said, "Ernie, hook up." And I said, "Do I have to?" Because he could really fire the ball.
Yeah, right.
You know what? I just listened to Booker, and it just reminded me of Jack. I met him in 1960 with the Los Angeles Chargers, and Jack went to Occidental. And I don't know if anybody had ever learned anything going to Occidental, but Jack, people really didn't realize that this guy is really self-taught. Every day that I knew him in California in a couple of years, he'd practice a new word, and he'd use it in a sentence. And when he got here, everybody thought he was so damn smart. Well, I mean, he just... So one day, he came up to me, and I never really knew how to take him, because he didn't go out with the guys, and he didn't drink and all these things, and I used to go out once in a while. So he said to me at practice one day, and I said, "Jack, how's it going?" He said, "Paul," he said, "I really like your perspicacity." Now, I didn't know whether to punch it or thank it. And then, but he smiled, so I figured it was good. I was going to look it up to see what it meant, and 50 years later, I still haven't looked it up because I can't spell it. But this guy really was self-taught, and I tell you something, you talk about a leader, look at what he did after football, not only what he did in football. He was a great leader.
Yep.
My first experience with Jack, coming here, and I was on the bench. I just played, coming into my first game with Jack, and about the last 20 seconds of the game, we were playing the Patriots, and we were behind. And Coach Sabin and John Mazur said, "Ferg, we want to put you in and run a post and run like hell." So Jack looked at me, and Jack said, "You ready?" I said, "Yeah." So I go out and ran like hell, and Jack threw the ball, and it was there. And I caught the pass, and it was an 80-yard touchdown pass. We won the game. And Jack had been catching hell throughout that game. He did not have a good night. So Jack came over to me. He said, Fergie, if you hadn't caught that pass, both of them been run out of here. Both of them, they would have ran us butt out of here. So that was my first experience with Jack, and I really enjoyed working with Jack.
Yep.
Well, my experience with Jack Kemp, in those years, most of the time, all the time, the center's position was that the quarterback was always up underneath of you, with his hands up underneath of you. And I found out through the years that of all the people that were, up underneath of me, he had two things there. He had very soft hands, and second of all, his hands were always warm. So that's what I enjoyed about him. And then I found out later that he was going into to be a politician and everything, and I always told everybody, all my friends, I says, I think he'll make a good one of the honest ones, he says, because he never did anything wrong to me, and I think he's a man that you can trust. So that's what I remember of Jack Kemp.
Okay, Larry.
My lasting memory of Jack as a football player was his first game in Buffalo after he came off the injured list in that 1962 season. The Bills had lost their first 7 games of the season that year, and it would look like a terrible disaster. But Kemp had started the week before in Oakland. He was rusty because he had just, he had just recovered from a very serious hand injury. And the Bills won that game 10-6. Now they get into Buffalo. His showcase game. They against a team that had beaten them really badly in Dallas, the Dallas Texans, which are now the Kansas City Chiefs now. Kemp had a fantastic day that day, threw for tremendous amount of yardage. Bills won, and against a team that would end up winning the AFL championship. And when it was over, the crowd that day was a record crowd, more than 35,000 people. Record crowd for the AFL team. And when it was over, the fans swarmed the field, hundreds, maybe a couple thousand, and they were going wild. And they picked him up on their shoulders and they carried him into the dressing room. They were probably mostly Democrats, but once and for all, he was their hero and the leader, and it was a remarkable thing he did for Buffalo at the time.
Yeah. Paul Maguire, you were with him in San Diego and Los Angeles before he came to Buffalo. So was there any difference in the Kemp style under Sid Gilman with the Chargers and Larry Sabin with the Lou Sabin with the Bills?
Yeah, I think Jack learned all of his football from Sid Gilman. He really did. Sid Gilman, you did what he told you to do. When he came here, he taught Lou Sabin all of his football. But I have to tell you that in 1960, I came out of college. I'm only 21 years old, and I was scared to death. We went out on the practice field, and Jack is there, and I didn't know who he was, and we didn't know each other. So I walked out, and I'm walking on the field. I'm listening to this guy calling signals, and I'm hearing down. Sabin. What the hell is that? So I said, who is that? The guy says, that's Jack Kemp. He's our quarterback. And I said, then someone ought to check him for testicles.
Al, I forgot to, Eddie, I'm sorry, Eddie Abramoski, I forgot to let you give us your favorite Kemp story.
Okay, I knew Jack when he was with the Lions. He got drafted by the Detroit Lions, and I was a trainer at the University of Detroit, and I was a game day trainer for the Lions because the trainer for the Lions was a Purdue grad as I was, and so we did things together, so I worked there. But anyway, I remember Jack playing with the thing, and the Lions player used to say the only reason Buddy Parker, who was the coach of the Lions, kept Jack is because Buddy was from Kemp, Texas, and so he had a soft spot for Jack. But anyway, there's two other things about Jack that, from my standpoint. Number one, when he had this serious finger injury, he made sure the ball would fit. It was fused, and make sure the ball would fit on the football, so he could throw it. And the second thing was Jack was one of the first players to lift weights. And in them days, it was taboo for a pitcher or a quarterback or anybody to lift weights. And Jack, the guys that tested, he could throw the ball through a brick wall. He could throw it 80 yards. He was fantastic. So now you see what goes on with weight training with the players and stuff. So that's my...
Right. Thanks. Ernie Warlick, you were here as well before Jack arrived. So when you heard that Jack Kemp had been obtained on waivers for $100 and was coming from the Chargers, I mean, what did you think that this was going to do to the team? What was his reputation as a quarterback?
Well, first of all, I had run into Jack in Canada. I came here from the Canadian Football League, and Jack was there, and he threw the ball too hard in Canada because the quarterback was, and most of the quarterbacks in the Canadian League were running as well as passing. So when I got here, when I got to Buffalo in 1962, shortly after one or two practices, there was Jack Kemp, and I thought it would be good that that Jack would do something for our team. Of course, I was just trying to make it myself. You know, I just switched from the Canadian League to the Buffalo Bills. So I forgot your question. What was your question?
Well, did everybody think that that this guy was a great quarterback for the Chargers and he's going to make our team, or what was that everybody's attitude?
Well, you're probably asking the wrong guy because I was new also. I was just coming in and into the States, having played in Canada. So I was trying to feel my way around as well. But I can say this, I'm very pleased that Jack came to the Bills because he could really fire that ball. And fortunately, I had a big hand, so I could catch it. And I think playing with him helped me stabilize my career with the Bills.
Anybody else want to comment on what the town expected when he arrived? Booker, you?
Well, I don't know what the town expected because, like I said earlier, is that Jack, to me, his name wasn't a great name, but I knew where he came from based on a lot of the press that he got coming in here because I was a defensive back, and I really could care less about what the offense did because, I was always defended against the offense. So when Jack came in, the impression is that he was the savior for the Buffalo Bills. What I learned later on is that not only that he was a savior, notwithstanding saying that Cookie Gilchrist was basically the savior as well. But Jack lent a lot of credibility to the offensive football team because the defense was the catalyst of the team at that point. We had some great guys at defense, but Jack's quarterback leadership skills, as Paul Maguire pointed out, he talked to people, he encouraged individuals to do things, he kept you on the right track. Great leader, and I think that put us on the map, bringing us from a 500 team to a championship team for 2 years in a row.
More, one of the things that I was with the Chargers in '62 when Jack got cut, and Sid Gilman got rid of him because he had broken his finger and he just couldn't play. And in those days, there were only 32 guys on the team. You either played or got the hell out of town. It was that simple. But Eddie was alluding to it. When he had the operation for his finger, he went in to the operating room with Dr. Godfrey, is that right, Eddie? And he took the football in. So what they did is they fused his finger around on the, they put his hand on the ball and then fused the finger so that he could grip the ball and throw it. You talk about, somebody that knows for the rest of his life he's going to walk around. I mean, it's a great finger to have straight, but for the rest of your life. I mean, you got that, baby. I mean, here's a guy, just he wanted to play. That's the character of Jack Kemp.
Yep, Al.
Well, I know one thing about Jack Kemp. He inspired me with his warm and what? With his warm hands. I wasn't used to that.
Excuse me, I played quarterback the last half. I mean, how were my
Yours wasn't
hands?
as good.
You know, I'd just like to add, Warren, before you go. I noticed when I first came here, and I was not used to Jack. Jack was not used to me. And we had tremendous wide receivers here. Albert Dubinion, Glenn Bass, Ed was there, and then myself. And the one thing that I gained a lot of confidence with Jack is that he was willing to work after practice. Jack spent a lot of time with us for timing. And I thought that was extremely important. And I thought with a slant pattern, I thought I was just invisible. Nobody could cover me. And also on a post pattern. And Jack would love to throw those patterns. And his timing became so great in working with the receivers. And of course, I just gained so much confidence in experiencing that with Jack.
So he had, I take it that the answer is that he had a great work ethic.
He did.
Yeah.
Yes. Extremely good.
And Ed Abramoski, was he tough? I mean, did he want to play when he was hurt?
Oh yeah, I mean, just like Paul said, he would play with all the little bruises, and you know he'd get sacked or smashed by a player, and he'd always take his time pretending he was tie his shoelace or something to catch his breath in there, so they wouldn't know he was hurt, and he exemplified the toughness.
Did he have a lot of shots? Did you give him a lot of shots?
No.
Yes, you did. You didn't. But I'll tell you what, I was in Houston, Texas, and I went in the training room to get, I don't know what to get, some bennies or something. But I went in the training room and opened the door, and Dr. Godfrey is sticking a needle in Jack's shoulder so that he can get his arm up to throw.
His throwing shoulder.
Yeah. And I almost got sick. Is that good, though? Maybe I should get some of this. No, but it was the first time I walked in and I said, what the hell are you doing? He had to do that almost for every practice, just to go out and practice. The guy was tough.
In today's game, they tell a quarterback your two best friends are the turf and the sideline. You don't ever want to get hit. But when Jack would roll out after a play-action fake, he would turn upfield and take on a linebacker, put his head down, and how many times we saw him get knocked out and carried off the field. And after the one game, the next day in the paper, and Jack always had a cute story about it, the Buffalo News had headlines, Kemp suffers concussion. And the sub-headline was, X-rays of head reveal nothing. So, and he always used that as a cute story.
One other thing that I remember is on some occasions Kemp would call quarterback sneak when we only needed maybe a half yard to gain the first down. And which with the quarterback sneak, that means the quarterback would keep the ball and run.
Yeah.
Well, there were a couple of occasions I remember that Cookie, weighing 240, would hit Kemp from the rear to knock him forward to get that half yard or whatever. And I remember a couple of times after the play, Jack got up off, from the ground and said, nice play, Cookie. Nice going, Cookie. He almost broke his back.
Well, you know who was in front of him, Ernie?
You.
I got a few of those, too.
You did.
But you know, Mort, there was a thing, about Jack, and you know, he was into politics and all these things, but the one thing, we had a team party on Tuesday nights at downtown, a place called Mr. Anthony's. And, you know, upstairs we had a meeting room, and it was kind of neat. And those years we were winning, and we'd get after, we'd look at the film, and that night all the guys would get together, and then we'd kind of separate, and they'd go over, you know, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Jack never missed coming to one of those parties. He didn't drink, but he was there to represent the team, to be with us. And Jack, you know, above all the things, you know, his political career and all this, Jack was a team player, really and truly a team player. And the one thing in his mind that you remembered, that every one of these guys will remember forever, and the guys that play with him, there's nobody that wanted to win more than Jack Kemp did.
One of the things was that what Paul said about Jack coming to those meetings. Jack, you know, as he said how smart Jack was, you know, Jack was laying the foundation for his political career to make sure that we voted for him and supported him. That's what he was doing.
So did he, was he the kind of quarterback who would rally you? I mean, if you were down and losing or something, I mean, did he encourage everybody to make speeches? Or what did he say?
He did it on the field. I recall the one game we were playing, I think it was against Houston Oilers. We were 3-and-out in the first 3 series, and the 4th time we went on the field, the fans started booing us, and Jack got in the huddle and he said, hey, let's shut them up, and he threw a 93-yard touchdown pass to Albert Dominion and came off the field to a nice standing ovation. So he did it on the field. He didn't have to do it in the huddle.
Jack was also the second guy since Sammy Baugh. That picture behind Eddie, the jump pass,
yeah.
People don't understand that. I mean, you've always seen him, you know, in film and speakers behind tables. Jack was only 5'4". So he had to really jump and throw the ball over the moon.
Well, tell him about his famous figure eights where he'd lose 30 yards when he'd go back. Pass and they'd be rushed.
He was a scrambler.
Yes. And
Yeah, but he was the only-
used to do this big figure eight, and he'd go back and he'd be back 30 yards from the line of scrimmage, and he'd complete the pass, and it'd be a 2-yard gain.
He was a scrambling quarterback with absolutely no speed whatsoever.
You know, one thing I'd just like to say, add on, and Booker, we were getting ready for the championship game in '65 in San Diego. And we had the 2 buses. And the first bus, most of the guys that like to get there early always try to get on the first bus. And Jack was on the first bus, Booker, myself, I'm not sure if Paul, and
No.
but anyway, going to the stadium, I mean, it was so quiet you can hear a pin drop. And everybody was just really getting ready mentally for the game. And I guess about halfway to the stadium, the old Balboa Stadium, and it was just so quiet in there, and Booker said, Jack Kemp, you SOB, you better have a hot hand out there today. And when that happened, it just, everybody just started laughing, it broke the tension, and I think that really had a strong impact on Jack, how he played that game that Sunday, because it was just unbelievable. Jack could do no wrong. The defense, like Paul alluded to, played the exceptional game. And we just shut them out. They couldn't do anything. And,
So, Paul, was he fun to be around? I mean, you're
Oh, no.
You're the
Hell no.
You're one of the funniest people I've ever met. So.
No, I never liked being around him. Joanne, his wife, wonderful woman. I mean, really good friends to everybody. But no, yeah, he was, you know, he was the kind of guy that, you know, you would talk to, but then they would always revert to politics or something was going on, and you know, I don't care, man. You know, he didn't sit with us and drink a beer, but he sat with us. No, he was very boring as far as.
Well, when we went on, we'd go on these trips, you know, ride for any distance, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and most of us had our playbooks with us, and we were studying our plays, you know, so we knew what we were doing. He was reading a political book or something. I mean,
Oh, yes.
he never got into the.
Yeah.
So when did he read his playbook?
I have no idea. He was a smart individual. I guess he must have looked through it, and that was it.
The question is, when did you read your playbook?
I didn't have to. I just fell down. Give him the ball and fall down.
That's true, because we had training camp up at Niagara University, and after our evening meal, you know, a lot of guys went out and whatever they did up there, Paul had a couple beers. But Jack said, you know, let's go out and do something. So I'd go with him, and they'd take me down to the B&B bookstore in downtown Niagara Falls, and get the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. News and World Report, and start doing all this stuff. And you talk about on the road, and I lived in Hamburg, and Jack lived in Hamburg, and we would drive to and from practice. And I would always be talking about the game plan, and Jack would start talking about politics, and, you know, where were you born, and are you a Republican or a Democrat? I said, I'm a Democrat. He said, how can you be a Democrat? Yeah. And he started indoctrinating me about Republicanism, and then we used to go on the West Coast trip. We didn't fly out to the West Coast and then come back. We would do 3 weeks. You'd fly out and play the Denver Broncos first, then go from the Broncos to the Chargers, Chargers to Oakland, or Chargers, or Oakland to the Chargers. And we were out in California. This is my rookie year with Jack, and after the Saturday practice, he comes in the room. He says, Eddie, he said, I got tickets for this big rivalry game. And I'm thinking, you know, Southern Cal, or Southern Cal, UCLA. He said, you want to go? I said, who is it? He said, Oxy Claremont Mutt. I said, who? Oxy Claremont Mutt. I said, that sounds like a dirt fight. I said, no, I don't want to go.
Well, I recall Sabin telling Kemp on one occasion in the dressing room, getting ready for practice, Kemp would be, as the guys alluded to, he'd be talking politics, political aspirations, and so and so. So one day, Sabin said, Jack, get your mind off that politics and start reading or thinking about those plays. We got a game Saturday or Sunday. I recall that very vividly.
Well, you know, the thing about it is, too, that you got to realize what Jack meant to the Buffalo Bills, because we only had 4 coaches in those days, and the head coach was one of them. Lou Sabin coached the defensive line, basically. Joe Collier had the defense, the secondary and linebackers. Johnny Mazur was the offense, everything in the offense, and then Jerry Smith was the offensive line coach. So that's all we really had. And I think that, honest to God, Lou Sabin really depended on Jack for what part of the game plan, the things that were going on. Because Jack was, I mean, he was that smart. Jack knew everything he was going to do when they got on the field, and that's what made him so valuable.
What was his relationship with Sabin like?
He didn't like him either.
But I mean, if the quarterback's calling the plays in those days, right? And so they must have worked out the game plan together ahead of time. So they were.
Well, these guys would know, the offensive guys, but I think Jack used to just stand there and nod his head at Sabin and say, yeah, and then go and do what he wanted to do. Jack did what he wanted to do.
I learned one thing. If you were on the offensive unit and Jack threw an interception, you did not want to walk off the field next to Jack, because Lou Sabin would be coming out in the field and he'd say, Jack, you're killing me. What are you doing? You're killing my family. And Jack would say, geez, Lou, I didn't do it on purpose. But, so you would just stay away and let Lou do his thing. I mean, he was unbelievable.
Well, one thing I recall in that regarding that is that Sabin was sending a play in. Remember, Sabin was sending a play in? Says, okay, run so-and-so, 22 trap on 4 or something. And Jack would say, the hell with that. We're not running that. We're going to run this play. If it worked, it was great. But if it didn't work, when he came out, we came off the field, that's when Sabin would say, you're killing me. What are you doing out there?
Booker, you were close to Sabin because you played for him in college. So what's your view of the Kemp-Sabin relationship?
Well, like I said, you know, being on defense, back in those days, the offense and defense really didn't mingle together. You know, they kept them separate and everything because we was a lot smarter than the offense. I mean, we knew what our assignment was.
Much smarter.
Yeah. But, you know, but one thing about Lou is that, I mean, Lou understood the game of football. I mean, he was a great coach. You know, he was a person that knew talent, and he knew how to treat people. You know, he did it individually. He didn't treat everybody the same. You know, but he would see a play develop, and he'll say no. He'll stop it. He said, you know, no, that's not the play. Now he didn't know what the play it was, but he knew it wasn't ran properly. So he told him to do it again. And that was one of the things I used to see all the time, not only here in Buffalo, but when I was at Western Illinois University, is that he knew what plays should be called and how it should be run. He didn't necessarily know what the play itself was. And I used to hear him stop the play a lot of times with Jack and Cookie and Ray Carlton. They was running the plays wrong. And I know they always took time out to you know, analyze what they was doing. But like I said, the biggest thing was that the defense and offense was totally separate, and so we never really got into what was going on. But I'd just like to say is that everybody else alluded to Jack being in his politics, is that I used to listen to him and Cookie and Art Powell and anybody else who would listen to Jack, because he really believed in a lot of social issues, and he was very concerned about society and where they was going. But he would also try to advise the ball players about the social issues that they need to be taken a look at. So I always admire him for that, you know, that he was always on the lookout for his teammates, you know, even in business situations. When business opportunities came up, he let us know, you know, so we could take advantage of it. However, we wasn't making any money back in those days, so we couldn't take advantage of anything. You know, we were barely able to buy groceries.
Well, he used to loan me a lot of money. I know that.
That's good.
Eddie, tell about the part that Jack played with Houston, New Orleans All-Star game.
Well,
we'll get to that. This
Okay.
is we will get to
Okay.
the All-Star game in detail.
But
Yeah, go
this
ahead.
is alluding to what Booker said about social issues. You know, Jack and I would be driving to and from practice together, and we're coming back home, and we had the itinerary for the upcoming trip, and it was an away game. And Jack was looking at the thing, and he said, Eddie, he said, they got all the white guys rooming together and all the black guys rooming together. Why don't we intermingle the rooming arrangement? And I said, I don't know, Jack. I said, you're the captain. Find out. So he called Jack Horgan, and he asked him, he said, why do you have all the blacks rooming together?
Jack
and all the
Horgan
white?
is who?
He was the vice president of public relations for the Buffalo Bills. And Jack said, I don't know. We thought that was what you guys want. Jack said, no. We want to start rooming together. So Jack roomed with Art Powell, and Kansas City trip, I roomed with Booker, and he taught me about black-eyed peas, and I taught him about Polish kielbasa, and we really had a significant part to play in the civil rights movement, not knowing that we actually did play a pretty good part.
Well, let's go to the '65 All-Star game then. Eddie, you ended up being the spokesman for the black players down in New Orleans about leaving. Why don't you just describe the whole scene about what went on in New Orleans?
Oh boy, oh boy. Well, we went to New Orleans to play this All-Star game. I think it was '65, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And of course, we were told that everything was fine. We would not be subjected to any segregation or anything like that. So, okay, we go to New Orleans. So the night before the game, Jack said, "Hey, Ernie, why don't let's go and hit a couple of spots on is that Bourbon Street? Let's go down. I said, you guys go ahead, because just realizing in my own mind where I was and what the history was, I said, well, maybe I shouldn't go. But Jack insisted that I go. So we go down on Bourbon Street, and we all go to walk into the place, and there was this attendant outside the place that would say, everybody, come on in. And when the black guys started, they said, look, not you guys. No, we don't serve your kind. No, we don't serve you. And Jack would be inside, and he'd look around and say, Ernie, come on. I said, they won't let me in. So I didn't fight it or anything, or make a scene. So after a couple of times, I said, Jack, why don't you guys go ahead? I think Duvinian was along with us, and I forget who else. I said, why don't you go? We're going back to the hotel. And said, no, we're going to find a place. We're going to find a place. Well, we didn't find any place. So the next morning.
But Jack would leave with you guys.
You know, I don't recall whether he left with us or not. I don't know. I can't say at this point whether we all came back together. I don't think we did. I think it was just a couple of black guys that got a cab.
Did you have to stay at separate hotels?
No, we were in the same
okay.
hotel, right? But we got a cab and came back to the hotel. But on the matter of the cabs, I got to add Cookie Gilchrist to this. We were outside and we said, taxi! And the driver said, we don't serve y'all, you got to call a black cab. And Cookie said, we don't care what color the cab is. We just want a cab. Well, we came back to the hotel. Then the next morning, Cookie Gilchrist called a meeting of all the black players, so the West squad and the East squad, and we started comparing notes on what we had encountered, all the black guys that had encountered segregation the night before, on both sides, the East squad and the West squad. So it was determined at that point that are we going to play the game or we're not going to play the game? And of course, Cookie was the one that spearheaded it. I'm not going to play. That's the way it's going to be. I'm not going to play. And Abner Haynes, who, for you, those that don't know, who was black, said, well, what are we going to do? And we said, oh, well, we're not going to play. We're going home. We're going to leave. So Abner Haynes said, now look, don't let me get back in Houston and turn on the TV and all you black guys are playing. I'll be mad. So we decided that we wouldn't play. In this meeting, we made that decision, and all the guys got up and started walking out. And they said, oh, we need somebody. By that time, the press was outside the door. I don't know how they found out about this, but they were outside the door. And we said, Cookie, since you spearheaded this whole thing, why don't you talk to the press? And of course, he said, no, I'm not talking to the press because they think I'm the one that started all this, so I'm not talking. So we need somebody else. So let's get one of the older guys to talk. Ernie, you be the spokesman. And everybody walked out and left me there. So I had to hurriedly try to put something together to make it sound a little professional anyway. So I explained why we had decided, all the black guys had made a decision not to play because of the discrimination that we had encountered the night before. But Cookie was really the one Cookie Gilchrist was really the one that spearheaded the whole thing.
Who else was there at the time? Were you there?
No.
No. Anybody else was?
No, I wasn't.
I'll tell you, in 1961, we were going to Dallas to play with the Chargers. And Jack was our quarterback then. And Baron Hilton owned the team. So when we went to Dallas, we only had, I think, maybe 8 or 9 black guys on the team. And we weren't allowed in the Hilton in Dallas. And the owner of the team owned the hotel. So they said, okay, the white guys can stay at the Hilton, but the black guys, you have to go to Grand Prairie, Texas, which is right outside. And Jack Kemp went to Sid Gilman and said, this is not acceptable. Either we stay as a team or we don't play. And Jack Kemp was the guy that actually did it. We all ended up in the crappiest hotel in Grand Prairie, Texas, because of Kemp. And I want it in the ledger. But that was, I mean, it was absolutely the right thing to do. We had no problem.
When in the New Orleans case, I mean, he was the president of the AFL Players Association. Did he have a role in getting the game moved to Houston?
I don't know whether he had a role in that or not, but I did not say that he was the one that said it told the black players, the group, look, I'm with you guys 100%. If that's your decision not to play, I'm with you 100%.
Larry, were you down there, and did you?
I was down there, yes.
Yeah, tell us what you saw.
Just about what Ernie talked about. You start talking to these guys and players from the other, black players from the other team, the North squad. What was it like when you went to try to go to dinner, or you tried to go to any nightclub or anything like that? Same story. It was a shout out all the way, and they had been promised ahead of time. There was a the guy who sponsored the game was a well-to-do, well-known jeweler in New Orleans, and he meant well. He was not a racist at all, but he assumed so many things, like the the color line was going to topple because of him, and there was no such agreement whatsoever, and it was a total mess, and it would have been an even blacker, pardon the expression, eye, if they had gone to Houston and the black players hadn't agreed to go. I mean, these guys and the other black players and the other teams saved an enormous amount of face for the league.
Did Jack have any role in the switch? Do you remember?
I don't remember that. No. I'd like to say he did, but I'm one way or the other, I can't remember.
I mean, this is the midst of the civil rights movement time. What was race relations like in the AFL, and how was Buffalo different from other teams?
Well, one of the things, I don't know how Buffalo is different from any other team, but we had a lot of guys that played came from Southern colleges and everything, but they was the earlier ones that came in, and so they sort of like got indoctrinated to what was going on. I know when I got here in '62, there was still a few guys on the team that really didn't want to have anything to do with black ball players, you know. So it made it very difficult to have some kind of conversation with them. Fortunately, there was offensive linemen. You know, didn't have no problem, so I didn't have to deal with them anyway. But you know,
You really never did like the offense.
I didn't like the offense at all, you know. But the thing is that that whole racial situation, it just would not go away. You know, when we played exhibition game in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and back to what Paul said, you know, Hilton, he owned the hotels, and we was at a Hilton hotel. And when we got there, Sabin brought me into the meeting. He said, Booker, I want you to have a meeting with all the black ball players because they didn't want to go. Cookie, Tom Day, Jim Sorey, Willie West, all the guys said, no, we don't want to go down south. We don't want no parts of it. So we had experience when I was in college, and Sabin said, well, look, why don't you go and talk to him? And I said, well, why me? I said, I'm just a rookie. They don't listen to me. Well, you know, talk to him. So I went in and I talked to the guys and said, so look, let me put it this way. If we don't get treated properly, we don't have to play. That's just the way it is. We don't have to play. So they all agreed to go. And so we got down there, and when we got there, just as sure as the day was day and night was night, they told us we could not stay there. And so now we got to go to the hotel across town, and the white players stay in the Hilton. So Sabin said, look, you guys do not have to play if you don't want to play. But what I need from you is unity. If all do not want to play, you don't have to play. If one decides to play, you play, or vice versa. And there was a couple guys that said that they would play because their livelihood depended on it, and they was trying to make the team and everything, and so they said, well, we're going to play. So we ended up playing. But we went to the restaurant that morning to eat breakfast.
This is what town now?
This is in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. You know, we went to the
College.
restaurant. Huh?
This is the Bills?
Yeah, we played exhibition game, New York Jets.
Okay.
And we went to this restaurant to get something to eat that morning. And I tell you, people was ordering food and everything, and I'm getting ready to order, and I'm looking at the cooks, and the sweat was falling off their heads into the food, and I said, I don't think so. You know, so when
Give me a bowl of that.
so when the waitress asked me what I wanted, I just told her, I said, give me a bowl of ice cream and a pie, you know, a piece of pie, you know. And I know no sweat's going to fall off in that, you know. And that's what I had for breakfast that morning. And but from that point on, everything else was good. The ball players here in Buffalo, they finally got on the same page with everybody else, and we really didn't have any problems here in Buffalo in terms of the racial situation and everything. So, I mean, obviously there was a few guys, as I said, that we had some problems with, but they finally, you know, came over and did all right.
But all the team parties, I mean, you know, when we'd go after a game on Monday, you know, we never segregated ourselves. We didn't go all as a bunch of white guys and a bunch of black guys. And then we always had the great Halloween party at
Ron McDowell's.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some pictures that we can't show today, to this day. But some of the costumes were kind of unique. Jack Kemp had a shirt on that said, "Burn, baby, burn, Stokely Carmichael for president," and stuff. I mean, we had some good times, but no, and we made some friendships during those times that today, you know, last a lifetime. You know, Booker, Charley, and Ernie. And
you know, the surrounding things that were there more, we could control in our locker room, and the word always was: what happens in our locker room stays in our locker room. It was about us. It wasn't about the people in Buffalo or the people in San Diego. It was about the Buffalo Bills. And you know, with Jack. And this is about Jack. Jack was a hell of a leader for us. He really was. I mean, he took charge. And you know, I remember we had a strike in 67, 60, whatever it was. We were on a strike and we were working out. And Jack was the head of the Players Association, I guess, at that time. He said, you know, we're going to strike. And then all the wives said, well, if you strike, you ain't getting any. So the strike only lasted a day. It's true. Come on. Jack said the only thing, we had the wives broke the strike. Players didn't.
Okay, Charley, you haven't weighed in on this the subject of the racial. We'll get back to the strike.
Well, I would just like to say that, you know, between Jack, Paul was very instrumental in making a lot of things happen. The team stayed together. I mean, his humor was really so important to the guys. And I think that he may not realize that, but Paul, you really made a lot of things happen, the team together, along with Jack with his leadership. And I think that's what really had us to work extremely close together as a team. You know, we just worked together. We did a lot of things together, and you know, it was not a problem. And I know Paul and Jack, they heard Tom Day call me Noopy. So they fell in line, and they had no idea what Noopy meant. They never asked. I don't know if Paul realized.
So no, I don't know what perspicacity is.
But that was a fraternity code. Tom and I were frat brothers. So they started calling me Noopy because that was the way Tom addressed me, as Fry Noopy. So Paul and Jack used to always do that themselves. Then it picked up. I think Ed used to call me that a lot.
I still do.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, Noop. Yeah.
So I think we're done with the civil rights issue. Let me ask you, Ed, how did Jack handle booing? And you know, because he got a fair amount of it. So
he said, you know, when they asked him,
and they threw stuff, right? Is that true?
His favorite joke was, he said, you know, after he got through with football, when he was going to run for Congress, he said, you know, these guys today, they get criticized. They're too sensitive. You know, people criticize them and everything. He said, when we played, he said, if I threw an interception or we had a bad play, he said that people would throw garbage at us and beer cans and rotten tomatoes, and that's when we were coming out of our house. and then his famous line was, if you could take the boos of 47,000 people in War Memorial Stadium, you could take the political heat and the politics.
Isn't it true, though, the one thing at War Memorial Stadium, which we all had to, they just said when you come down the steps and you're heading onto the field, because we had to go out a tunnel, always keep your helmet on. Right. I'm not talking about after a game, whether you won or not. Always keep your helmet on. I was with the Chargers. We came in here in 1960, and we used to play these guys on Friday night. And Sid Gilman said, when we leave this game, because we beat them, he said, when we leave this game, keep your helmets on. And I'm thinking, what the hell? When right behind us on our bench are guard dogs in Buffalo. And I went, oh, my God. So I put my helmet on. And the guy throws a full can of beer at me. I say, hey, thanks, man. And I had to wait to get to the locker room. But they were very friendly. I mean, they didn't just throw stuff at those guys. They threw stuff at the Chargers, too, when we were there. They did not segregate anybody.
Now, what happened when you know, he threw an interception or a receiver missed a catch, did he get mad? Did he?
Well, in those days, as the offensive line, as Booker would say, we never had too much to say. You know what I mean? We just
Well, what did you hear?
We just heard a lot of bitching, which they already said. You know, why didn't you catch it, or what's wrong with you, or this and that. But we weren't.
Did you hear it from Jack? Did Jack criticize anything?
Jack was a fairly quiet person as far as I'm concerned. He was a very smart individual, and he knew that he wouldn't let a screwed up pass bother him, and that's what kept him. He just kept going. He wouldn't quit. Jack was a tough. You know, the thing I remember about Jack the most is his toughness. He was a very strong, tough. And although he wasn't a very big person, he was very tough. And no, we didn't get into the offensive line. We didn't say too much.
How about your receivers? What happened if he?
They're the talkers.
Yeah, when we were playing the Miami Dolphins, and I was playing split end at that time, and we got down to the 15-yard line.
We lost that one too.
And it was in December, and it was cold. You know, your feet are cold. We didn't have the hand warmers and all this stuff that these guys have today, and my hands were like ice.
Jack had a hand warmer.
No, well,
We moved down by boat.
Anyway, he called a quick post pattern where you go down about 7 yards and slant to the inside, and I was wide open. I had 2 steps on the cornerback, and he threw a pass, and it hit me right in the hands, and my hands were so cold, it bounced out of my hand. I came back to the huddle. He chewed me out. He said, you know, you got to hold on to those things. You know, there aren't that many times when you're going to get open like that. And I said, Jack, I can't feel a thing. I said, next time try to, you know, don't lead me, hit me in the number so I can try to trap it against my shoulder. But that was the only time in my career and relationship with Jack that he really ever had nasty words about me.
And he never threw a pass to you again.
That's right.
Well, I remember in the huddle sometimes when Jack would ask Dubinion, "What you got, Doobie?" Meaning, what is open? What can you get open on? And Doobie, I don't have a damn thing. They beat me up as soon as I line up. And he says, Bass, where you got Bass? And Bass would say, Jack, I don't have anything. They won't let me off the line. I used to crack up with that. And then I would say, well, I made a joke of that, and I said, well, Jack, just throw an incomplete pass like you always do. That was a joke, though.
So, Charlie?
Well, I can go back and remember an incident where Jack and I used to communicate a lot, and one day Jack said, Fergie, let's keep this to ourselves and let's work on an alley-oop pass. R.C. Owens with the 49ers developed that pass. They used to call it the alley-oop. So we were around about the 10-yard line. I can't recall who we were playing at that time, and Jack looked at me and he called the play. It was like a curl, and I was supposed to go and turn in, and he was going to throw it high. But somehow, the ball didn't come high to me, and the ball was intercepted in the end zone. I never said any more to Jack about it, and Jack never said any more to me about it. So that was the end of our alley-oop at that time.
Okay, so now I have to ask about the quarterback controversy. Sabin would play Jack, and then he'd pull Jack if Jack wasn't performing, and then put Darryl LaMonica in. So what was Sabin's philosophy about who he played as quarterback? Larry, what do you know about that?
I think it was his mood at the time, to tell you the truth. I mean, if he had enough of Jack, he had enough confidence in LaMonica after starting with his second year that he put Darryl in there. Darryl was a very confident guy, and Eddie tells the story all about. Tell him about.
Yeah, well, he was playing in his game, and he missed his first 11 passes, was all incomplete or intercepted or anything, and like Eddie always say, when you'd come out, Sabin would say, "You're killing me. What are you doing?" thing. And LaMonica's standing there listening to all this diatribe, and then he says, "Coach, don't worry about it. I'm going to complete my next 11 passes." And Sabin says, "How the hell you know that?" "I'm a 50% passer." So that was LaMonica. But even though there was a great rivalry there, it never spilled over where one guy was mad at the other one. Mm-hmm. You know, they handled civilly.
So in what sense was there a rivalry?
Yes, there was a rivalry, yes. I used to stand on the sidelines next to LaMonica, and LaMonica would call what play he would call. And he'd tell me, I would call this Eddie, and I would call that Eddie. And then, you know, if it worked, okay. If it didn't, if Jack did okay, then he didn't get in. But he was always in there, and same thing with Jack. Jack always was in the game. If he wasn't playing, he was at least, like Eddie said, taking part in what plays to call. And
but that's how Lou got the best out of all of us.
Right.
I mean, he knew how to get that out. He knew that Jack was a fierce competitor, and that if you pulled Jack out of the game, Jack was going to want to fight like heck to get back into the game and make up for whatever he did. And that's how Lou treated it. I recall we were playing the game against the New York Jets, and Doobie was injured. The other wide receiver was injured. And I was going to start that game along with Glenn Bass. And we were at the end of a practice, and when practice was over, we're all going in, and Luke came walking over, and he said, "Young man, you know how we're going to win this game, don't we?" And I said, "Well, yeah, you got to score more points." He said, "No." He said, "It's all on your shoulders." He said, "You got to have a hell of a game. If you don't, we're going to lose." Well, talk about putting pressure on. And then I said,
lost.
"No, we won." And I had a heck of a game, but. At the 25th reunion, when we had everybody back, I told Glenn Bass that story. He said, "You know, Sabin said the same thing to me." He said, he called me over and he said, "Glenn, if you don't have a hell of a game, we're going to lose, and we're counting on you to make this happen."
But what I read somewhere that the Bills went like 0-3 one year, and Sabin refused to talk to anybody on the team for weeks. Is that true?
No.
No?
I don't know.
Okay. Well,
Maybe
it was
before
in the
I
book.
got here, no. No, we wouldn't allow it. We didn't talk to him. But you have to understand something. You know, the rivalry and everything was made up, sorry, Larry, by the press and by the fans. Had nothing to do with these two guys. Jack would not allow it. You know, Darryl wanted to play, which was, I mean, hell yeah, I wanted to play. If you didn't want to sit on the bench, you wanted to play. You got to remember, there were only 32 guys on the team at that time. You didn't do your job, the guy behind you is going to go in and play. And when he screws up, they're going to put you back in the game. This is the way the game was. There were games when Jack didn't play well, Darryl came in, he wouldn't play well, Jack went back in the game.
Back in, yeah.
It didn't matter. The fans made it something that it really wasn't. If you sat and listened to these guys, before a game, man, they talk to each other about the game, the strategy, and what the hell was going on. If something happens and you're in there, this would happen. And when Darryl got in, Jack was right there to help him when he. I mean, this stuff was done by media and fans, not by the players. This football team would not allow it.
I think this is something that I talked to you before about, is that one thing about Lou, hey, if you produce, you stay. If you don't, you go. And he had no qualms about yanking Jack and putting Darryl in. And if Darryl was not on par, he snatched Darryl right back out of there and put Jack back in. And that is, and as Paul was saying, and I said before, is that it was media driven, it was fan driven. Just like today, you know, everything comes up that you never hear about a running back controversy or wide receiver controversy. It's always a quarterback controversy. You know, I mean, even right now, they got quarterbacks being drafted right now. So it's always that, you know. But that's what media is about. That's what the fans are about. They have opinions, and they understand the game of football. But as people ask me, they talk about the game. Why don't the coach put so-and-so in? Or why don't the coach do this? And why don't the coach run that play? And I'm saying, look, the coaches and the players know more about what they're doing out there than the fans and anybody else, because they the one put the game plan together. So whatever they put together, they know what they're doing. But it's strictly media and fan driven, which is fine because they paid $8 to have that opinion. But Lou Sabin never had a problem with that, and Jack, even though Jack was competitive and everything, he understood what the game was all about, and that's winning.
Did the fans and the media have a favorite in the
Well, it depended. You know, we're in an ethnic town, so they'd check the gate, and if there were a lot of Italians at the game, the girl was definitely going to get in. If they weren't, you know, Jack could play the entire game.
Or, when Jack was running for vice president with Dole, he called me and he said, I'm going to be in Erie, Pennsylvania. He said, why don't you and Mary Lou meet me in Pennsylvania, because I'm going to be speaking at the courthouse with Governor Ridge. So Mary Lou and I drove down there and met Tom Ridge at the airport, and Jack came up, and we drove in the motorcade, went down to the courthouse, and they introduced us all and said some nice things about me, and then Jack got up and he started speaking. You know, Jack's up there speaking and talking, and they had a bunch of demonstrators, about 15 demonstrators, and they put them across the street, and they had cordoned the area off with this yellow tape because they didn't want them disturbing anything. And Jack's talking, you know, and he keeps looking over to his left, and finally, and he says this good-naturedly, he said, hey, you over there. And everybody looks over there. He said, you know, you can make fun of my economics and you can make fun of my politics, but don't ever make fun of my football. And there was a guy with a big sign that said, put in La Monica, put in La Monica. But that's not the end of the story. So we drive back to the airport, and Jack and Joanne get on the airplane, and Mary Lou and I get in the car, and we're driving back, and he gets me on the cell phone. He said, Eddie, he said, you know, the press was there, and he said, they're going to take that out of context. He said, I know they're going to call Darryl, and he's going to say something stupid, and it's going to embarrass me. And I said, Jack, I said, don't worry about it. I said, you know, I'll track Darryl down. So it took me 2 days to find Darryl, and I told him the situation. He just started laughing. He said, don't worry. He said, I support Jack and the president. He said, I won't say anything embarrassing. But
You're talking about my hometown, Eddie.
There you go, Erie, Pennsylvania.
That's where I grew up, yep.
There was a game in, I think it was the end of the '64 season, in that snow game that you won, I think 24-14. And the question was who was going to start. And Jack, according to Rock on the Rock Pile, the book, goes to Sabin and he says, look, you've got to decide who your quarterback is. So it did get to Jack a little bit, didn't it?
Well, anybody who's a competitor, you know, given the choice between me and my competitor, you know, you want me in the game. And Jack was a very confident individual, and he thought he could pull us through, and he did.
Morton, one of the things you got to take into consideration when you read that, and don't take it in context, but when you read that, and you've got to realize something, that the starting quarterback, there's only so much time you spend on the practice field. Wednesday is offensive day, Thursday is defensive day, and they combine the two of them on Friday. The starting quarterback gets to most of the work. So the quarterback needs to know who the hell's starting. Is it going to be me or is it going to be him? I mean, it was a legitimate question to ask. Now everybody said, well, there's the controversy. There was none. Just wanted to know, am I going to be your starter or am I not? It's that simple.
The media needs to defend itself. Larry?
They're just about right about all this stuff. I mean, as far as playing favorites or anything like that, that didn't exist. I mean, I wanted to see the quarterback in there who was with the hottest hand, who was playing best at the time. I think most sports writers are like that. Both of these guys were good quarterbacks, and we had situations here in the last few years where you got the fans are split between one quarterback or another, when in fact neither one of them could play. In the situation with the Kemp and La Monica rivalry, both of them could play, and which lead. It's inevitable that there be a split up with the fans, and as far as the media goes, we're just looking for a good story.
Yeah.
You know, and it truly is true, Mort. You could boo Jack, and he walks on the field and throws a touchdown pass, and 41,000 people go nuts, and they love him.
Yeah.
You know, and if he throws an interception, and they're going to boo him coming off the field. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, and it always will be that way. If you get into politics or sports with a thin skin, you're never going to survive. Not in this business. I'm going to tell you. It's in the media business, journalism business. Same thing. You better have some tough skin.
Yep. So, Al, I have to ask you this. What was it like? What was the difference in having Jack and Darryl under you?
It really didn't make much difference to me. You know, they both at that particular time, as I said before, they always was up underneath there. You didn't have to snap the ball back or anything, worry about anything like that. But they were both great people, and everything that these people are saying here now, they all got along. We got along with everybody, and it didn't. No, I was just, especially in my situation, I was just very, very happy, very, very lucky boy to be where I was.
But could you trust Darryl?
They could have put him behind me.
Oh, I'm very happy.
You ought to ask.
I heard about his hands.
You ought to ask Eddie how he was torn between two guys, the Notre Dame guy and his best friend Jack Kemp.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add a little something about it could really get crazy with the fans. When Paul was talking about somebody throwing a can that was still half full in War Memorial Stadium because they were upset at Jack or something like that. There was one game, I can't remember which one it was, but when they swept away after the game, when they cleaned up the field, there were dozens and dozens of cans that weren't even opened. And I mean, that was the same. It was the same game with the wife of Mike Stratton, who was a great linebacker for the Bills. Somebody threw a full can of pop right in the back, almost in the head, and that led to at least the same moment. They barred cans and full containers in War Memorial, and you had to get if you wanted a drink, you went to the concession stand and got it in a cup.
Well, that's where the team used to go right after the game to the field.
But didn't we used to have to go up through the stands, remember, to get into the locker room at halftime? And I'll tell you what, the fans in Buffalo, they're great, but if you were having a bad game, you would hear some comments going through those stands, boy. I'll tell you, hurry up, walk faster if you're having a bad game.
But answer what Ed was asking about. So were you torn? You had a Notre Dame teammate and your best friend sort of rivalry. How did?
No, you know, we knew Darryl was a good quarterback, but Jack, you know, he had the arm, the leadership capability, and he led us and he won for us, and you know, he was the man. We knew that. And when Darryl got traded, that was the best thing that ever happened to Darryl. I mean, he went out and he had a cast of characters that were unbelievable. I used to follow his stats because Darryl and I were competitors at Notre Dame. We both went there as quarterbacks. And I'd see where, you know, Darryl threw Hewitt Dixon, their fullback, you know, a 64-yard touchdown pass, and I'm thinking, to Hewitt Dixon, yeah. And Darryl drops back, and I'd see the film. He'd dump this little 4-yard pass to Hewitt Dixon, and he would run over about 5 or 6 people 46 yards down the field. And, you know, that's the kind of talent he had around him. So it was a great move for Darryl.
Mort, the one thing that all of these guys understand, and it is today with all athletes especially, and on a team, if you didn't want to play, if you were just happy to be there, you know, it tore a guy apart that he couldn't play. And it did Darryl and it did Jack. When you want to play. I mean, I just remember this guy, just real short. I remember when somebody got hurt and Al had to move to guard. And I'm going to tell you something, he was the best center in their league. He had to move to guard. Not one word was said. He just moved. It was for the betterment of the team. And these guys understood it. The only thing, and Larry said, the only thing that's important is winning, for God's sake. I mean, all this other crap that goes on, that's what people perceive, and they think that, well, we know what's going on in the locker room. No, you don't. Like some jackass. I walked out of the stadium one time in Buffalo. We got beat 41-0. And the guy pulls me up, and he's half smashed. And he goes, "Hey, what happened?" I said, "Hey, you had a better seat than I did, man. Tell me what happened." What happened?
But isn't an exception to that rule the whole Cookie Gilchrist controversy, where Cookie refused to play at a point because Jack was passing and he wanted the ball? did that go down? How did it all happen?
Again, I'm with Booker. We don't care about the offense.
I can give you my take on it. What had happened is Cookie had something in his contract. If he got so many yards, he got a bonus. And in the game, the defense they were showing us, we were passing more. And he walked off the field at halftime and just refused to play. And so Lou put in the other guy, and Lou fired Gilchrist. But Jack, we wanted to win the championship, and Jack and the other guys, I don't know who, these guys probably know better than I do, Jack and the other guys went to Sabin, and Sabin told them, hey, you always told us we're a family. We need Cookie to win this championship. So Lou said, okay, I'll take him back, but he's gone at the end of the year. And that's exactly what happened. But Jack was very instrumental in having Cookie come back.
Yeah.
One of the things with that was that Cookie and I, we was roommates, plus we was, great friends and forever. He was my mentor and anything else along the way. As Eddie was saying, is that it's part of the contract, and I think I mentioned this before. All players have incentives in their contract, and I'm quite sure Jack had something about how many passes that he completed and how many yardage and stuff like that. And Cookie had the thing about carrying the ball, 30 times a game, 30, 35 times a game. He was the first American Football League player that they gained 1,000 yards, that scored 5 touchdowns in one game. So there was incentives in his contract that if he got X, Y, Z, then he would get paid. Same thing, he said, play me on defense as a linebacker, but you better give me another contract, And so when this whole thing came down, Cookie didn't want to leave Buffalo. He didn't want to, he never was a quitter. He never was anything. But it was an instinctive thing that he did what he did, and the old story said, once you did it and you thought about it, you're sorry. It's too late. It's already done. And so when Jack called him and they talked, and Cookie, stated that he would apologize and everything, then it became to a public apology. Now, that wasn't what it's supposed to have been. It was just supposed to be an apology. That's all. And so I think that got into Cookie's craw, is that he had to make a public apology to the team and everything about what happened, because there was more to it than what people had said it was. But all in all, Cookie have always said in the past is that, hey, it was the right thing to do. He had no animosity towards Jack. In fact, him and Jack were very good friends. Mm-hmm. They talked along the way from after football and everything. And Jack was very instrumental in a lot of things that Cookie did after his football career. So, no, Cookie and Jack was like this. And Cookie never denied the fact that I did the wrong thing when I walked off the field. Not only did I disappoint myself, I disappointed my teammates.
Anybody else have a take on this, watching it? No? Okay. What was Jack's relationship, since he was the president of the Players Association, with Mr. Wilson? Ed?
He had a high degree of respect for Ralph Wilson. In fact, I recall when Ralph's dad passed away, and we went to the wake. Jack and I drove together, and when we went up to the casket, he saw Ralph Wilson's dad in the casket with his hands crossed with the Buffalo Bills championship ring on his finger, and he just couldn't believe it. Although Jack was president of the Players Association, we didn't do anything that was that controversial or that demanding at that time. He was just trying to get better benefits and better money for the ball players, and it wasn't as contentious as it was years ago or even today when they're trying to redo the CBA. It was more making sure that we tried to provide some new, he had a a thing he proposed, a CAP, C-A-P, a career adjustment pay, so that when you retire from professional football, you would get a certain amount of money to make a transition from football into the private sector, so that it wasn't an abrupt change. And he was very sensitive to that. But no, it wasn't contentious, and he did a great job for us.
But you did strike once?
Yeah, we did. It was 67? It wasn't for a while. It only lasted a couple of days.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you remember what the issue was?
Huh?
Do you remember what the issue was?
Money, isn't it always? I mean, in those days, you know.
What did you get paid at the beginning, and what was your highest pay as a Bill?
Well, I started in 1960. Well, I know Ernie didn't make anything in Canada. So in 1960, I made $8,000 my first year, and I got a $1,000 bonus when I signed the contract. And I played 11. My last year was $25,000, and that was a lot of money. I don't ever complain about any of it. And I said to Mr. Wilson once, I said, you know, you owe me some money, pal. You're paying all these guys now. He said, how much did you make? I said, $25,000 my last year. He said, I overpaid you by $24,500. And that ended that.
So was that about the pay scale for everybody?
I got, my first year, I got $1,500 bonus, and $8,500 was my salary. I went down and played in the blue-gray game, and Detroit had, they wanted me to play there. And so the scout came up and asked me, did you sign with the Buffalo Bills? And of course I lied to him. I didn't want him to know. I wanted to find out how much they would offer me, you know, how much the NFL at the time would offer me instead of the AFL. And I think the difference was, I think, $1,000 either way. So, and my highest pay, yours was $25,000, mine was $23,000. I played 10 years.
Think about it.
9 years.
Was a
And,
better
and that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money then. I had a brand new house. I had a brand new car. I had 3, 4, 5 kids. I was doing good.
Yeah. So Charlie, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when I came here I started in Cleveland with $7,500 and was traded to Minnesota the next year. And being the leading receiver on the 62 team, I was a holdout in 63. And I was trying to get a $1,500 raise. And I didn't get it. Van Brocklin let me go. And I came here, and Lou asked me, he said, well, what was your contract? I say, well, I started studying on him a little. Saying, well, this might be my opportunity to get that little $9,500 that I was after. But I told him, I said, well, Lou, I was after about $10,000 contract. He kind of looked at me. I ended up signing for $8,500 when I came here. I went out at $25,000.
Now, so what happened? Joe Namath gets $467,000 contract. Yeah. So did everybody get a bump? I mean, did that help you?
No.
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 Did it?
Or you have to understand. First of all, you got to understand something. With the players, there were some guys that want to. You know, we got to get more money. We got to do this. All these guys, all they ever wanted to do was play.
Yeah. We would have paid them.
Money had nothing to do with it. So help me God, it didn't. It was never brought up. Yeah. Tom Sestak and I roomed together the whole time I was with the Buffalo Bills. We went into business in 1978. 68, excuse me. And I had no idea for 5 years how much money this guy made. He was my roommate. Yeah. Until the day we signed the papers to go into a business together, then I realized how much money he made. But I mean, it was, you never ask. I don't, does anybody here have any idea how much Jack Kemp made?
He made about 45 at the end of the year. He was the highest paid on the team because he was a quarterback. But you got to realize, we would have paid them to play if anybody asked us.
No.
Maybe the offensive guys.
They would send you. They would send you during the off season your contract with your salary in it.
Right.
And they expected you to sign it and send it back. And I recall, I forget what year it was. I think it was 67 or 66. And it was during the preseason, and after one of the practices, Harvey Johnson, who was our player personnel guy, after practice, he says, I want to see Rutkowski, Stratton, McDowell, and somebody else after practice. And we're thinking, you know, what's this all about? So we go in there after practice, and Harvey said, "You SOBs," he says, "you're holding out," and didn't realize it, but I had my thing in a drawer in my cabinet in the bedroom. I forgot to send it back in, and all of us forgot to send our contracts back in. Not that we were holding out. He said, "I'm going to give each one of you guys a $1,500 raise. Take it or leave it," and he walks out. Well, we all started laughing because my contract had a $500 raise, and the most anybody had was Stratton. He had a $1,000 raise, so now he's going to give all of us $1,500. So we're laughing, and we're trying to think who can best go out and represent us with a straight face. So I think it was Mike Stratton, and I came back home. I said, "Honey, you're not going to believe this, but we just got a $1,500 raise." Unbelievable.
So who was the, let me ask you, since you're the closest politically to him, I mean, who coined the term "the senator" about Kemp?
I don't know who coined the term, but
I think Tony Marchetti.
was it Marchetti?
Yeah.
And Tony, who was that?
Tony Marchetti was the old-time equipment manager, and because he was always talking, and he'd always say, "What do you want to be, a senator, Kemp?" And then so it just stuck. It was
And I
Marchetti.
think Eddie Abramoski used to say that we used to call Jack the statesman of the bill. So if anybody ever referred to him as that SOB, you knew what they were talking about.
So did he try to get people to vote for Goldwater and Nixon?
I'll tell you this. He used to. My dad was a union representative, worked in the steel mill, and Jack used to always run by his theories about everything about politics. I knew he was going. He even gave me the book. He was telling me the fall and the rise and fall of the Roman Empire and decadence is going to set in. Eddie, I want you to read this book. And I can remember he would talk to me about Social Security. He would talk to me about that, and I would always kid him. I said, "Jack, to get elected, you know that bell-shaped curve? You've got to be in the middle of it. You can't be on one end or the other because you aren't going to be elected." And we used to tease back and forth, but he always used me as a sounding board. But I knew he was going to go, and I would have voted for him every time, although his views were entirely different than mine. But he like when he was Huddy, he worried about the people. He really was concerned about things that mattered to the little guy too. Although he had his trickle-down theory from Leffler or something. I always told him, "I don't know how smart you are, but you're well read."
He never, you know, the other thing, he never read books with pictures in them. He never did. He said, "Do you want to read this?" I said, "How many pictures?"
So when did everybody realize that he actually was going to run for office? Did he talk about?
Oh yeah. I used to when they had the AFL days. This is unheard of now. My God, coaches would be going out of their minds. But the press used to travel with the team to the road games, and you were gone for a long time. And even the flights were usually prop, and you didn't get a lot of jets, so you spent a lot of time together. Well, Jack used to come down to my seat and looking for a debating partner, and I had a lot with him. He was fun to debate with. Never raised our voices ever. Respected what we had to say. I was an FDR Democrat, still am, but he was always an interesting guy. And remember how he used to call himself? He referred to himself as a
bleeding heart conservative.
Bleeding heart
Conservative, yes.
Conservative.
Yeah.
He was. That's exactly what he was. And a guy with a huge heart, thought about people didn't have a lot. And I've met a lot of people in sports and a lot of people in business and so on. One of the most admirable people I ever met.
You know, I'll tell you one thing about Jack Kemp and with all the players. I don't think there's anyone here at this table or on the football team. If wherever he was, we all knew how to get a hold of him, especially with Eddie. And if you said to Eddie or called Jack, he answered. I don't care how busy he was. He always had time. This was a team. This was a family. One of his first families. Not immediate family, but first family. Never had a problem. He's just that kind of guy.
Did you help with his campaign when he decided
No
to
money.
run for Congress?
No, I don't ever give politicians money.
Well, what about
I'll give them support.
appearances and stuff like that?
Appearances?
Yeah. Did you go out and I mean you're famous in Buffalo? Did you go help him get elected?
No.
You know what? I don't. Jack, all the time that Jack ran, he never personally asked me to participate.
Me.
People around him may have, but I don't ever recall going out and campaigning for him. I went to a couple of his functions and everything, but just to go out and beat the bushes and campaign for him and everything, he never asked that of us. He didn't put that on us.
It was all Rutkowski's fault.
Yes, it was all Rutkowski's fault.
You should have.
He had a great line. He said that he went out and he told the people of Western New York that if you didn't elect me to Congress, I might have to go back and play quarterback for the Buffalo Bills. He said, so that reassured my election.
Well, did anybody ever campaign for him?
No, I'll tell you, it's amazing. All of our wives did. They were the supporters at the campaign headquarters and Mary Lou and
Campaigners, yeah.
Yeah, campaigners. I mean, the girls did.
Paul,
But-
didn't two of his old teammates on the Chargers, Ernie Ladd and Earl Fates, on campaign for
They
him?
did. You're absolutely right. They did. Because they were so glad to get him out of San Diego to make sure he didn't have to come back to California.
Okay.
No, but they did. Yeah, that's true.
Larry, you're on the Hall of Fame selection committee, right?
Right,
Okay. So is there ever a chance that Jack Kemp will be in the Hall of Fame?
probably not. It's as tough as Peter King from Sports Illustrated coined a line several years ago that brought up every year at that meeting. He belongs, so-and-so belongs in the Hall of the Very Good, not the Hall of Fame.
Billy Shaw actually has made a petition to the Hall of Fame that there be a sort of a separate category
Yeah,
for public
contributors or
service or
something.
something like that.
Yeah.
Is there any chance of that?
Honestly, no. I don't think so, because there's a long line of people who are in that category who have not been elected. It's not easy to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And that's why they have a 7-hour meeting every year, and people storm out. They're quite angry at one another, and it's not easy to get in.
Okay, I think we've about done it, but I just want to give everybody an opportunity. If you have one thought about how Jack Kemp ought to be remembered, anybody want to conclude with?
Well, I'd like to say this. I had a story that I wanted to tell, and it's leaving me. Oh, man.
Well, I'd like
Somebody
to
else pick it up,
That
and then
happens
you'll
to me
remember.
10 times a day.
I would like to say for a small kid, little kid like me, came up from a town in Pennsylvania as a football player. I was very, very, very lucky, and I'm very, very, very proud of saying I played with Jack Kemp, because there's not too many people can say that.
You know, it really is kind of neat. It's hard to believe that we're sitting here and a guy that was so young and vibrant as Jack, when you know, maybe Jack never aged, never stopped working, never stopped doing things, that he's not here, and that's a sad part. But what Jack gave to all of us, as you've heard, what he's given to all of you and all of them in every endeavor that he's ever taken on, he may not get to the Hall of Fame, Larry, and I agree with you totally. But with us, he is in the Hall of Fame.
But I always recall Jack is a great family man. I mean, I admire and respect him tremendously. And in fact, after the championship game, my vivid memory of him is being carried off the field, but he had his son, was it Jeff or Jimmy, on his shoulder. That exemplified what he was all about. He was a family man first, and he loved his family.
Was Joanne sort of some kind of a den mother for the team? I mean, what was her role?
She's the glue that kept the Kemp family together. you know, because Jack had so many interests and was always going off on tangents, whether it's football or politics or whatever, you know, working for Goldwater. But Joanne was the glue that kept the Kemp family together.
She brought him back to earth.
Yeah.
You know, I'd just like to say, Marty, that the things that I used to notice about Jack, for whatever reason, he had to come back to Buffalo, politics or whichever. Jack never forgot his teammates. He would always wanted a group of us to be there. And I used to wonder sometime, I said, well, gee, Jack ended up spending more time talking about football than he did politics at times. But that was the way Jack was. He really wanted to get us there to let people know that, you know, we're still with Jack. We supported Jack whenever we could, whatever we could do. And I just always appreciated Jack for being that kind of person. He was a people's person.
Now, on the note that Charley just made, this is what I wanted to say. Jack used to come back and would invite some of his fellow teammates to lunch. And on one occasion, we all went to lunch. I think Binion was there. I'm sure you were there on one of these occasions. And our son, who was in college at the time, was at home, and we told him we were going to have lunch with Jack Kemp. And he said, oh, I want to meet Jack Kemp. I want to meet him. So we all go to lunch, and Jack mentioned to my son that, you know, there's a young lady in our office back in Washington. She's nice looking. Said, boy, maybe you should meet her. And my son said, oh, that would be nice, Jack, but I don't know what my wife would say about that.
We were never invited to lunch with Jack Kemp.
Oh, you weren't, huh?
No. When did you guys go to lunch with Jack Kemp?
Yeah, I wasn't.
They didn't tell us about that one.
Well, that's true, right?
Look, now he's
I vouch for it.
Now
Were
he's
you
got-
invited to lunch, Larry? You never
Okay,
were
on
there,
that note, I think listen, this has been wonderful. I think this is going to be, you know, provide such great memories for so many people and fans in Buffalo, and also people who consult the Jack Kemp collection at the Library of Congress or on the Kemp Foundation website. So thank you all for participating in this, and thanks to you, Ed, for organizing it.
My pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bradley, Steve Largent, J.C. Watts, and others who took their exploits on the fields of friendly strife to the Capitol, where today, as we always have, we need politicians who are passionate about serving their party best by serving their country first. We believe that that's one of the things that Jack Kemp, my father, did so well, and we look forward to his inspiration continuing into